The moment the ball left the rim and dropped into a crowded paint, it wasn't just another rebound. It was a signal. Something in the WNBA was shifting, and three names were pulling it in completely different directions: Brittney Griner, Angel Reese, and Caitlin Clark. One represented legacy, one brought disruption, and one was quietly becoming a revolution. At first, it didn't look like a collision. It looked like evolution. Griner, a two-time champion, had already carved her place in history. A dominant force who didn't need headlines to prove her impact. Reese arrived with noise, attention, and undeniable energy, the kind that turns every possession into a statement. And Clark? She wasn't just playing basketball. She was changing how it was played, how it was watched, and how defenses even thought about the game. But then came the move that nobody could ignore. When Reese landed in Chicago, it felt like the start of something powerful. The franchise didn't just draft a player, they invested in a vision. A national champion, a cultural icon, and a rebounding machine who could bring life back into a rebuilding team. Early on, it worked, at least on the surface. Double-doubles piled up, rebounds stacked, and the spotlight followed her everywhere. Yet beneath those numbers, something wasn't adding up. Because while Reese's stat line grew, the team didn't. The Chicago sky weren't rising, they were falling. A 13-27 season turned into 10-30, and suddenly, the excitement started to feel complicated. Analysts began digging deeper, and what they found told a different story. Efficiency inside the paint was inconsistent. Scoring struggled to match volume, and many of those rebounds, they came from her own missed shots. That's when the real cracks started to show. Not in the box score, but in the locker room. Veteran leadership matters in a league like this. And when Reese publicly took shots at respected players like Courtney Vandersloot, it didn't just create headlines, it shifted dynamics. Teammates noticed. The league noticed. And soon, reports of tension weren't rumors anymore. They were patterns, miscommunication, frustration, and moments that hinted at something deeper than just growing pains. Then came the turning point. A suspension. Not for performance, but for conduct detrimental to the team. In professional sports, that phrase carries weight. It means the issue isn't temporary, it's structural. And when Chicago followed that suspension with a trade, sending Reese to the Atlanta Dream, the message was clear. This wasn't just a roster move. It was a reset. What happened next made it even louder. Almost immediately, Chicago transformed. Players who once stayed away suddenly showed interest. Skylar Diggins-Smith arrived. Azura Stevens committed long-term. Rickea Jackson joined the roster. And, perhaps most telling of all, they brought back Vandersloot, the same veteran Reese had publicly dismissed. It wasn't coincidence, it was clarity. The locker room had changed, and the league could see it. But while Chicago was rebuilding, Atlanta was taking a gamble. On paper, the Dream were already strong. A 30-win season, a playoff team, a roster built around experience and chemistry. At the center of that was Griner, a veteran presence whose value went far beyond numbers. Leadership, composure, championship DNA. And then they made the trade. Reese in, Griner out. It didn't make immediate sense, and within days, something even more telling happened. Griner left. Not months later. Not after negotiations. 5 days. She chose to walk away from a contender and join a lower-ranked team instead. That decision spoke louder than any interview ever could, because players at her level don't move like that without a reason. In a league as small and connected as the WNBA, nothing stays hidden. Players talk. Coaches talk. Everyone knows what's happening behind the scenes. And when a Hall of Fame caliber player looks at a situation and decides it's not worth it, that becomes the real headline. Meanwhile, Clark continued doing what she had been doing all along, playing, no distractions. No public battles, just production. Her presence on the court was already reshaping defenses, forcing teams to adapt in ways they hadn't before. And off the court, her impact was just as strong, pulling attention, fans, and momentum toward the Indiana Fever. While Chicago reset and Atlanta rolled the dice, Indiana quietly built something dangerous: chemistry, stability, direction. And suddenly, the league found itself at a crossroads. 3 players, 3 paths, 3 completely different kinds of influence. Griner showed what experience values most. Reese represented potential, but also volatility. And Clark? She became the standard everything else was being measured against. Now the question isn't just about talent. It's about fit, about trust, about what actually wins when the pressure rises and the noise fades. Because when the season begins and every possession matters, one truth always reveals itself. It's not just about who can perform, it's about who can hold everything together when it matters most.